How do you go from a print to a finished piece of machine embroidery? Let me show you. How much do you know about the Vlieseline water-soluble fabrics? We all know that they wash away really efficiently. You may well be familiar with the Solufleece, which is a brilliant fabric that doesn't tear when you stitch. It will take heavy needling. You can use it single, double, triple with your automatic sewing machines that do all the wonderful automatic embroideries. But did you know they also do a self-adhesive water-soluble fabric called Solufix because it's sticky on the back. It's got a very lovely firm carrier sheet. This carrier sheet means that you can put this through the inkjet printer. I wouldn't put it through a laser printer because that uses heat, and I'm not sure what would happen with the glue on the back or your printer, but it certainly works in my inkjet printer. So I'm just going to cut out the image. Don't need that little one. I wasn't quite sure what size I was going to do, so I printed two. And then there we go. Now I've got two pieces of Solufleece, the ordinary Solufleece. Actually, it's not ordinary Solufleece, it's superb. It's the best wash away machine embroidery or embroidery support that you can get. It's just bigger than the embroidery ring that I'm going to use. And I'm just going to take the paper backing off the Solufix with the print on. Shouldn't have cut my fingernail, should I? There we go. So I just take the backing off, and I've got the print, and I'm just going to carefully, hopefully without, so it is quite sticky, without creasing it, lay it down onto the Solufleece. So now you have your image ready to stitch. When you start framing up for your free machine embroidery, it's a different way round to when you're doing hand embroidery. So you start with the ring that has the screw on the top for tightening, and you pop your work on there. I'm just going to make sure I've got both pieces of Solufleece. You can use one piece of Solufleece. It's just that I'm a bit of a thug. I'm a bit of a beast when I do machine stitching. So it's just handy for me to have two sheets. It's totally up to you. It's a personal preference. Then you take your second ring and you pop it on the inside. Okay. And then you brace the frame with your hand and you pull without ripping to really stretch and tighten the Solufix and Solufleece. Once you've gone round once, you then tighten up the screw, and then you go around again. You always brace it, otherwise it will all just ping apart, which you don't want to happen. Of course, I've got my hand across everything, so you can't see anything, but you need to brace it with your hand like that, and then I'll just tighten the screw again. It needs to be drum tight so that when you ping it, it sounds like a drum. Okay, so when you work with hand embroidery, you would have your frame this way up, but when you're working with machine embroidery, you have your frame this way down so that it's always flat on your machine, because you don't want to tip it or anything. You need to have it nice and flat. You never tip it up, and your foot can go in and it can breach the gap here for the height of the ring. So you're ready to stitch. If you find that your image is too close to the edge, then you can just put the ring on half of it and then just move it over. There's no big problems. So now you're ready to rock and roll. My favourite machine for free machine embroidery is an old Bernina 707. It's a heavy steel machine, but it's great because you can lower the teeth, the feed dog here, which is really important. You can change, you can still get all the right feet for it, so you can get the darning foot. But the most important thing is being able to lower and raise. I think you can just see that going down and then up. It's very important to be able to lower the feed dogs on your machine. So you don't need a complicated machine to do free machine embroidery. You just need a machine with a swing needle, so you can do zigzags and straight stitch and be able to drop your feed dog. That's all you need. Before you start, I'd like to just give you a couple of tips on how to stitch more smoothly when you're working with free machine embroidery. If your foot is up, then it should just go over the top of the embroidery ring, no problem. I'm just using some plain Solufleece. What I'm going to do is bring up the bobbin thread through the Solufleece. It's important to have both threads on the top when you start. I'm going to put the foot down now and I'm ready to start. So when you do move off, because your feed dog is down, you need to be able to move it around quite freely. You need to hang on to the threads on the side of your ring, just pop your thumb there, just so that the threads don't get dragged down into the feed. And then whenever you start your work, whether you're dressmaking, machine embroidery, whatever you're doing, always start with your needle in the work. This means that you've got enough thread in the machine to make the stitch, because there's nothing more annoying than the machine coming unthreaded. So I'm hanging on to the threads on the side of the embroidery ring here, just so they don't get dragged down. The needle is in the work, and then you just very gently ease off with your foot pedal and then start to move. You can always check on your colours if you're not quite sure where they meet, because sometimes colours bleed in. So you can always have a photograph as reference just to check where the colours should be. When you've had to change your bobbin, because you have to keep changing the colours, each time you do that, you need to make sure that you bring your bobbin thread up through your work every time. So you've got both threads on the top of your work. And again, you can just put your needle in your work and then zoom off again. And once you've done a few stitches, again, you can just chop that residue off. The most important thing is not to tug against the needle. You can only go as fast as the machine is. You can work in grids, you can go around in circles, but you must always make sure that everything is joined up together. So the way to do that is when you need to change your top thread, I'll just come out of this and snip my bobbin. You can just have a look on the back and see where the spaces are. And obviously I've got large spaces here because I haven't stitched here yet. So now we have our finished stitch piece. I'm just going to take it out of the ring and pop it into a bowl of water. So here we have the finished stitch piece. I've cut away all the extra threads that were kind of traveling over other colors while I moved the thread around. And I've checked the back and I'm pretty sure that everything is joining up okay. I've just seen another thread there, so I'll just cut that off now. It's just easier to do it now when it's all wet and wibbly. So I'm going to cut away the residue. We don't need all this Solufleece here. Well, Solufleece and Solufix. A little hint and tip. When you're cutting away what you don't need, don't throw it away. You pop it in a jam jar with some water and dissolve it. It kind of goes into a glue, which you can keep in a jam jar with a lid on for several weeks. It's amazing glue. It's clear. It's fantastic. Give it a go. So nothing is wasted. So I have my piece here. Now you'll see some people running their pieces of work underneath taps and rubbing it with their fingers. If you want to get all of the Solufleece and Solufix out of your work, the best thing is just to leave it in a bowl and let the water do the work. It doesn't matter what temperature you use. It's soluble. It's going to dissolve. Okay, you don't need to whiz it around, do all kinds of things with it. You can see my lights are reflecting in the bowl, which isn't terribly helpful. So that's just dissolving away there. Now, what you can do before it's totally dissolved is take it out. And if it's more or less, oh, you can see that I didn't actually join that up. But the great thing about Solufleece is you can go back and do it again. But for this purpose, this will be fine. So before everything is totally dissolved, you can actually take it out and leave it to dry and it will go stiff. You can also shape it if it was large enough over a bowl shape and let it dry. But for our purposes, this is a picture. So we're going to dry it on some kitchen cloth here. So I haven't quite dissolved everything. I'm going to take most of the moisture out and then we need to wait for it to dry. This is a good way of keeping it flat and absorbing the moisture. Yeah, it's still reasonably sticky, which is great. You can feel it tugging a bit, which means this will go stiff, which will be rather splendid. I'm just going to give it a good squidge with the cloth again to take out any residue water, but I still want a little bit of the goo in there that is the Solufleece and Solufix that will make it stiff. Because if it's stiff, it's easy to put into a picture frame. I find that anyway, if you want to have that as your end result. So a lot of the water is coming out from this kitchen cloth. So that's all damp. So now we just need to wait for it to dry. So here's the finished piece. It's dried out now. It's nice and firm. It was easy to stitch it onto this canvas. I prefer a canvas for this kind of work rather than putting it into a glass frame, but the choice is absolutely yours. The main thing is to have some fun with this amazing product and see what you can create. Vlieseline have made a fabulous sample box of 5 different machine embroidery stabilizers, which would be perfect for anybody wanting to learn more about free machine embroidery. I hope you've enjoyed this video on soluble fabrics. There'll be plenty of more inspirational videos on the Vlieseline page. Also, if you go on to www.vlieseline.com, you'll find a video on how to use every single product they make. There are some very, very comprehensive videos on there and some gorgeous projects and great inspirational ideas. So get out there and have some fun.